2 special announcements. One, I am doing a free 5-day reset this upcoming Monday, May 5th through Friday, May 9th. This reset will teach you how to stop binge eating without feeling deprived. Who needs that? I know I sure did. There's going to be daily lessons, support from me, and a community of people who are also in your shoes, not to mention some really fun prizes. So this is not a reset you're going to want to miss out on, and it's not like your typical resets that are boring and not fun. We are going to be having so much fun, so make sure you sign up in the show notes for that. The second announcement is that the Confident Eater group program to stop binge eating for good only opens twice a year. It is the most affordable option to work with me and gives you the benefit of community where you get to see other people getting coached and you get to learn and grow from their experiences. This group is going to be open for a very limited time, starting Thursday, May 8th through Tuesday, May 13th. And there's only going to be 10 spots available, so I can offer the highest level of accountability and support. Spots are first come, first serve, so make sure you are on my email list to get reminded about that. All right, let's get into this amazing interview with my client, Lauren. Hello, Confident Eaters. Today I have a very special guest, which is my client, Lauren, who just finished up in the Confident Eater program. And I am so excited to have Lauren on today to talk about her story with food. And really, everyone's story with food is so unique, and I think we all have something valuable to offer within it. So you're going to learn a lot about her history with food, as well as some insights she had in the program, some things you can take with you today. So Lauren, why don't you say hi and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Lauren Lawson, live in Ohio, and I just completed the 6 months with Amber. Prior to that time, my relationship with food, the first word that comes to mind is miserable. I was constantly tormented with constant thoughts of food and what to eat and how much to eat and when to eat. And that most of the time I would just say, forget it, right? And just pig out. So I would plan binges in my head, like premeditated all day long, fulfill that need in my head, go to the store if I needed to, come home and just binge. And I did that for, years. And it didn't really even know what I was doing at first, or that it even had a name, or that it was something. I just thought that was me. That's how I did things. I hid food from my husband. I made him lock food up away from me, tormented him during my tormenting of myself. And then, of course, after the binges, you feel horrible. It's that cycle of guilt and feeling like garbage, saying I'll never do it again, just to return the next day and do it again. So it was a vicious cycle of eating and then dieting and then eating some more. And then I ran across Amber online, and it's been life-changing, to say the least.
I remember on our first consult, you telling me about your locked food room that your husband had,
Yes.
that you had to keep it out of your sight, your vision, just all completely away. And I think so many people can relate to this, where they're like, I just don't even want it in the house. But then it's not fair to their kids, to their partners that do want to bring the food into their house as well. And so tell me, because I think you are someone who truly has tried it all before. So tell me some of the things that you had gone through and tried to help solve the binge eating before this.
Well, the most drastic was I did have gastric bypass surgery 20 years ago. I had it when I was 5. I did Weight Watchers. I did, the cabbage soup. I did, you name it. I remember I did the Whole30 and thought I ate nuts and rocks for 30 days. And I thought surely I was going to lose weight. And I got on the scale and lost a half a pound. And it was the most devastating day of my life. So, literally, I don't know that there's anything out there that I haven't tried, even just for maybe a day or two, just to see. But the colored measuring containers that you put different foods in, you name it, I did it.
I relate to the Whole30 and only losing a half a pound. I did sugar-free for a whole month once, and I was like, this is going to be the answer, because clearly if I'm binge eating on sugar, then I just need to cut it out and everything will work out well. But the truth is, you learn very quickly that you can overeat on other foods too. You can overeat on Whole30. Right. And if we're not tuning into our body and really addressing the psychological part behind it, nothing's really going to change, because we're just trying to put the Band-Aid solution
Absolutely.
on it.
Yeah.
And one thing I had down too was that you tried outpatient therapy for binge eating as well, and it was a big commitment. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and what that was
Yes,
like?
see, things I've even blocked out of my memory. Yes, I did try some outpatient. It was 4 nights a week for 4 hours and made dinner together. Like, we all went and made dinner, and then we would come back. It was online, and we would just sit and eat with each other, tell each other what we were eating, and then there was a lesson, but a lot of it was just kind of talking about binge eating. But it was the longest 4 hours and 4 days. It was such a commitment, and I never felt like I was learning something that I could use, like, long term. Like, okay, sure, I can sit online for 4 hours every night with people. Of course, I'm not gonna sit there and binge in front of them. So during that time,
Mhm.
I was safe, but, I didn't learn any tools that when I left that group, how was I supposed to be around food? So that for me was the
Mhm.
most confusing because I didn't understand what I was supposed to do for the rest of my life unless I just stayed in the group. So that was very,
Mhm.
very interesting.
That's the experience that I've heard from so many people, and I went to therapy for many years for my own eating issues as well. But I find that unfortunately, the research is pretty lacking on eating disorders, especially with binge eating disorder and what's the right treatment for it. And the approach that most therapists take is this very sheltered approach, which is exactly as you mentioned, which let's just hide these people from the
Yeah,
world and make sure that they are always safe so they don't
right.
binge. And that can also look like trying to make sure that you're always happy, you're never triggered, you're not putting yourself into any triggering situations. And it's just a way that makes your life so small. And we don't want our life to be like that. We want to be able to do like whatever we want. We want to be able to live a normal life. We don't want to have to be in therapy for 10, 15 hours a week and to shelter ourselves from all of the triggers of the world because that's just like, it's so exhausting to do that. And there is a different
Yeah,
way.
yeah.
So now when you came in with me too, you also started a GLP-1, Wegovy. Will you talk to me a bit about your decision with that and your experience beginning that?
Sure. So I had reached out to my doctor, when I first heard the hype, because of course it was another diet or something I could try to lose weight. And at that point, my doctor was like, I'm not even getting you started until, it's readily available and you don't have to wait, or go cross state borders to get it. She's like, what? When it comes out and you can have it all the time, then we'll talk about it. And of course, that time came almost exactly the same time I had come across the confident eater. And so I was, conflicted because I'm like, okay, well, do I try this program and see how that works? Or do I try the Wegovy and try that first? Or do I just try them together and see what happens? And so I did. I talked to you and admitted, hey, I think I'm going to try this. And I felt like you were kind of like, okay, it was kind of both of us, should I take that step? Is that going to be right for this program? And I found that it really kind of helped. They worked hand in hand rather well. Being starting the Wegovy, I instantly didn't have much of an appetite, but I never had much of an appetite. We talked about this since my gastric bypass surgery. It's very hard to find that hunger and fullness. So this just kind of really brought to mind again that I have to listen to my body, whether I'm taking, medicine or just regular, your body's going to tell you when it wants to eat. So having the
Mhm.
Wegovy and then also learning your tools together, I really found like it gave me, I don't want to say an easy route, but it was a easier route because I didn't have
Mhm.
that constant binging, I have to eat now type of feeling.
Mhm.
So I could kind of stay that off, but then also implement what you were teaching me as far as listening to the body, giving the body whatever it wants. There's no bad foods. And just really combining those two tools. For me, I'm really glad that the timing worked out the way that it did. Might not for everybody, but for
Mhm.
me, it was perfect. And now I've raised my dose of Wegovy and still learning, okay, well, but I'm not starving, I'm not hungry, but not always
Mhm.
having the craving constant urges that I had before. So for me, it was a win-win.
Yeah. And I was just telling Lauren before we hit record how proud I am of her that she was able to take the leap on both of these together, because I know so many people who would say, I'm already spending this time and this money and this energy seeing other doctors and doing this GLP-1, and I don't want to spend money on, another thing on top of this. But I think it is so important to address the psychological things underneath it, because otherwise it just turns into another band-aid solution, and we're changing the biological aspects, but we're not really doing anything to change our mental aspects. And the thing about diets is, with the diets in the past, we know that diets do not work. There's a ton of research on it. In fact, 95% of people who lose weight on a diet will either gain it back or even more.
Yes.
So it's a very, very low chance that you're actually going to lose the weight. And, I did some quick research before this I was curious, the people on GLP-1s, like how many people keep it off. But, because it's so new, there's not a ton of long-term research, but there is quite a bit of research that suggests that if people lose a significant amount of weight super quickly and they don't do any other additional psychological work alongside of it, there is a portion of people who continue to gain it back once they come off of it. Another thing that I think is important to consider is, and I know we coached on some, is if rapid weight loss is happening, it has a really negative impact on our body long term. And I remember one week, Lauren, we were talking about you're like, oh, I wish I was losing more weight or it was happening faster. And I just wanted to be there already. And I was explaining how, this is actually the best thing ever for it to happen really slow. And one of the main reasons is because when we have really rapid weight loss, a lot of times what happens is we lose a lot of muscle with our fat. So yes, we're losing some fat, but then we're losing muscle, and muscle is more metabolically active. And so then if you go off of it when we're at this lower weight and we've depleted all of our muscles, we're not going to have a high baseline calorie burn. It's going to go way down even before, if you had someone who was 150 pounds who was just naturally there versus someone who rapidly lost weight down to 150 pounds, they would be needing different calories every day because they'd have different amounts of muscle. Anyway, all that to say, I think the way that you've been doing it in the slower, more sustainable, addressing the mindset, really doing it step by step, is a way that's going to be permanent and sustainable long term. And I see so many people who just want, again, using it as a quick Band-Aid fix. And that's why I did question it at first, is because I was like, don't want you to think it's just going to be the end all be all solving to it. Because if you ever go off of it, you're going to want to make sure you have the tools to listen to your body, to know how to sit with urges, to manage your emotions. And now that you have been through the program, you've been given those tools, and to know you'll have those with you forever, which are permanent tools.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on that, I have a friend who started a different one, but same concept about the same time I did. And I see her on Facebook and she's lost way more weight than me, right? And I'm like, oh, maybe I should have gone on a different one, or maybe I should, what am I doing wrong? Is your first reaction, right? Because you see somebody else, they're doing better, you think you're doing something wrong. Then it hit me. We probably talked about it, but I keep reminding myself, because it's probably in a note or a sticky somewhere, to remind myself that I'm, though, teaching myself to eat what I want to eat. So there's no bad foods. I can have a pantry full of food. I don't have a locked room in my house with food that I can't eat, because I'm slowly learning and using tools. And the Wegovy is just kind of helping, like a little side bar, where most likely my friend is, eating salads and, doing the diet part of these shots, right? Because if you take the shot and you really want to lose weight, you're going to exercise and you're going to not eat because you want to lose the maximum amount of weight. But I'm using it as a tool to help me stop binge eating and stop eating, erratically. And so I'm not going to lose that amount of weight as quickly, but down the road, every time I get on the scale, I'm down a pound or 2 pounds, or, I'm going in the right direction. And that's what matters, because on top of the scale going in the right direction, although slowly, my mind is not as bamboozled as it was before around food and the whole eating, mess. That's me. It's
Right.
yeah, you can lose a ton of weight really quickly on these shots. But like you said, it's like any diet. And then you're most likely going to gain it back. So, in some way, shape, or form. And they
Mhm.
don't know much about these shots. So, you know, you don't know if you have to get off of it, you can't do it long term, you're going to gain the weight back. My goal and what I'm teaching myself is if I had to stop the shot today, I still would lose weight because I know how to be around food.
Exactly. I think the word tool is really the best word for it, is it's like a tool that can be part of your toolbox, but it can't be the full solution. There needs to be other tools in your toolbox too to have the complete toolbox to changing your eating habits and to stop binge eating and to lose weight. There's many different things we need to learn within that. I think another good example would be, or analogy, kind of like building a house like really quickly from thin
Mhm.
paper versus taking the time to like lay the bricks
Right.
down. And that's what we're doing. We're laying the bricks down, which takes a little bit longer to build our
Right.
house, but then you have a really strong, sturdy house that can survive strong winds and strong rains and
Yeah.
tornadoes, and it will be there because we took the time to build it really
Yeah.
strongly.
Like you were saying about you have to have different tools. Like you can't build a house with just a hammer. I mean, you have to have nails and you have to have screwdriver and, have all the tools. So, yeah, I think the more you build on it, as long as you're not, you're kind of using them each tool for what it's meant to be used for. I think, like I said, it was a win win for me for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the changes that you've made and where you are now. So, what would you say is different about your life and eating habits after the program?
Well, I haven't binged in about 4 plus months, and so that is
Mhm.
huge. I mean, just huge. When you figure it was
Ah,
something I did pretty much on a nightly basis for years, my mind is no longer consumed. I think when I first spoke to you, before I even started the program, during my consultation, I'm like, I just want to have room in my brain for something else. Like, I want to be able to think other thoughts. And I am able to do that. I feel clearer and more like I can expand my interests into other things that don't have to revolve around food. Everybody's like, there's good foods, there's bad foods, right? And for me, I've neutralized, right? There's no good or bad food. It's if you want to have a cupcake for breakfast, have a cupcake for breakfast because otherwise you're just going to sit all day and think about the cupcake. Why do that? So it's been so life changing, is the word. Like I went from miserable to holy wow. I still enjoy food.
mhm.
I still think about food. It's not like, I no longer, food is nothing to me. And I find myself sometimes going down that rabbit hole of, oh, well, I'm going to be home alone tonight. It's not like I'm completely cured and like I never have these thoughts, but I can pause and stop and think and make some rational decisions, which was never that just wasn't possible for me. Like when I once I started thinking about food or binging, that's what was going to happen. And since I've talked to you
Mhm.
and even after, I can keep myself from, just get back on track. What's the goal? What's the purpose? Do you want to feel like crap? And just talking myself through it, which is again, so
Mhm.
different than what I ever felt before.
Right. And that awareness, that pause is the most important part because normally when we start out, it's like our urges are just happening so fast, we don't even recognize what's going on.
Yeah.
But, we're never going to be perfect eaters. I am not a perfect eater still to this day. I never will be. And like, what even is a perfect eater? We can't even define that. But what's most important is that we recognize what's happening and then we know how to easily course correct. So if we were to overeat and just saying, whoops, okay, I did that. And instead of saying, oh my God, I ruined my entire day. Screw it. Let's just keep going. It's just, okay, I forgive myself. I learned something from it. I have the tools to know how to learn something from it.
Right.
I know what I'm going to do differently next time. And now I can actually move forward and do it.
Yeah.
I like that you pointed out too that you still sometimes think about food because this is what I always tell people. Like, I get when you have all this food noise and you're thinking about it 24/7. I had one client tell me, I just want to plug myself into the wall and recharge for the night. I don't even want to think about eating ever again.
Yeah.
But we're gonna think about food, it's just we change the quality of our thoughts about food. And we probably think about food a lot less because we have other things that we enjoy now too. But we're still gonna have memories around our old habits. Our brain remembers things, and so sometimes it will feel slightly triggered to be like, "Hey, remember you used to binge on this? Do you wanna binge on it again?" And it's being able to have the new skills to say, oh, hey, that's my lower brain speaking. This is just my brain going on autopilot in an old loop of what it used to do. But I now know I can sit with this sensation. I don't have to act on it anymore.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, it's so cool to be able to stop myself. And because I would always have that angel devil on the shoulder, right? And it's like, oh, you shouldn't do this. Yes, you should. Blah, blah, blah. And now you can kind of just be like, stop. This is the right way. And even if I've, like you said, overeaten a little bit, like, yes, I've definitely overeaten, since through this program and since. But it now when I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, Lauren, you're starting to get that icky feeling, like, stop, stop, stop." I'm more aware, I'm more present than before when I would binge. It was just like you would be, like, in this outer body, like you had no control of yourself. And now I'm like, "Whoa, you
Mhm.
don't wanna go to bed feeling like this," or, you wanna do after work, don't give yourself a stomach ache. So now you're just, like, talking yourself
Mhm.
through it, and it's a
Mhm.
whole different world for sure.
So tell me about tiramisu because this was one of the foods that we worked on. And on our last call, you told me I've had tiramisu in my fridge for weeks now, and my husband thinks I'm going crazy because I don't need dessert all the
Yes,
time.
yes. Yeah, I love tiramisu. It is absolutely my favorite. And my husband, this is when he kind of noticed like I was making changes because we had gotten at Costco, they had like a thing of 6 or 8 little, glass cups of tiramisu. And we got them. And because it was actually what's the session that you teach that you're supposed to have your favorite food for so long? Do you know what I'm talking about?
The trigger
Yes.
process.
So
Yes.
that was gonna be my trigger food. So I got it, I brought it home, it's in the refrigerator, and my husband loves it too. So he was eating some and we were kind of sharing whatever, and he's like, "I know something's changing with you because there's a cup of tiramisu in there and you haven't touched it." And it did. It sat there and I think he either ate it or we ended up throwing it away because it had been in there for so long. And currently, there is some frozen tiramisu in my freezer, and it's sitting there where normally I would be crushing into that thing and eating it frozen, right? So it's been
Mhm.
in there for a while. So
Mhm.
I know that I still love tiramisu. I enjoy it. When you said tiramisu, I was like, oh, I got excited. But I know that it's there. I can get it anytime I want. And I want to be able to enjoy it. And one of the things that you said to me that was kind of like a woo, my aha moment was when I was talking about the tiramisu and wanting to eat more. And you said, yeah, but if you don't eat it all, like if you stop when, you've had enough, then you can enjoy some more again tomorrow. And that brought me so much
Mhm.
joy. Like, yeah, like why did I
Mhm.
never think of this before? Like if you have extra, then you
Mhm.
get to enjoy it without guilt and without feeling like crap tomorrow. So that was
Mhm.
something I still think of things like, "Oh, don't eat that whole cookie because tomorrow you can enjoy it while you're watching your TV show." So it's just again,
Mhm.
just that awareness of making decisions that are going to make you feel better. Like you're not going to
Mhm.
feel worse by making these decisions where binging, I think we talked about, only hurts you. Like there's really no benefit of binging. Where if you turn it
Mhm.
around, then there's benefits.
Exactly. Then you get to notice how good you feel in your life and your body, and it's really showing our brain that of, "Look, brain, like, not only am I getting more pleasure by not binging right now, but I also get to feel really good in my body. I get to eat this food again later." And I was just coaching someone earlier today too on slowing down when they were eating, and they were like, "But the food is so good, I just wanna get it all in." And I'm like, "Well, if you enjoy the food so much, like, let's make the experience last 20 minutes instead of 5
Mhm.
minutes."
Yeah,
And then you can slow down and you can taste the flavors for a whole 20 minutes
yeah,
instead of gobbling it up in 5. And so looking at when we change our thoughts around it, it can make it so much easier to let go of these habits because our brain has a new perspective on it where it's like, "Oh, we actually see the truth of what's happening," which is that binge eating sucks and it's never fun and it never brings us pleasure, but, like, food becomes so much more pleasurable when we are actually enjoying it and being mindful with it and eating in amounts that our body loves too. That's when like food pleasure is at its max, not when we are shoveling it all in, standing in our cabinets, like not even being present for that experience.
absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes when I would binge, I don't even know that I tasted the food. It's like it was just get it in there, for that quick euphoria or whatever feeling that I thought I was getting. But yeah, it's tasting the food and enjoying it, and even being able to enjoy it into another day. I mean, that's how real people eat. And so, it's really nice
Mhm.
to feel like I can eat like a normal person.
Now, with hunger and fullness, because that was an area that we really had to navigate based on your surgery in the past and being on a GLP-1, what are some things that we did tactically or mindset wise that helped you start to listen to your body better?
Uh, I won't remember the exact class or homework type things, but I know that for me, it was sitting and eating my food at a table, having
Mhm.
like bringing my food, eating slower so I could feel when I got full, right? So not only I think a lot of it too for me was okay, I feel the hunger, okay, or even if I didn't feel hunger, like I'm not starving, whatever, like you taught me that there are other ways to tell if you're hungry because I'm just waiting for like my stomach to growl or something like that's what, most people's
Mhm.
stomach growl, right? That's hunger. But you said, you might feel a little tired, you might get a little headache, you might, just kind of check yourself, like, how am I feeling? Or it's been 4 hours. Like, I still set an alarm every 4 hours to check myself. And you know what? My breakfast was kind of small. Maybe I'll have some of this or this. So it's just constantly
Mhm.
checking in with my body and not maybe relying on those common, stomach growling things, but think of other ways like, how am I not feeling right? Oh, maybe that's because I need to eat. And then sitting,
Mhm.
enjoying the food, putting it on a pretty plate or whatever, listening to Christmas carols. I remember it was Christmas time and I put Christmas carols on. So just, learning how, like you said to your other clients, like enjoying the food, chewing the food, slowing down. Those are all things that I remember helped and still to this day help. Not every meal, not
Mhm.
every time am I going to sit and plate it and make it. Sometimes you're at work and you're like, I have to eat this really quickly. It's my sandwich. And I know that a half a sandwich is enough right now. Sometimes you don't get that experience, but knowing that that's the best way to eat is a good reminder to just slow it.
Yeah, and we started including some foods earlier in the day because it was for you getting to the end of the day and being like, "Oh my gosh, I've barely eaten anything because I didn't even hear any hunger." Now, some people when they hear this of, "Well, you want me to start eating more earlier in the day? Like, I don't wanna eat anymore." Do you feel like having more food earlier on and more consistent meals helped you overeat less in the long run?
Yes, because my goal, right, I wanted to binge. So, like, in my mind, like, don't eat much all day and then I can, eat it all at night. So I had to like retrain myself to eat breakfast. And what am I eating at breakfast? Does it have protein and fiber and all those things that are going to sustain me? So, kind of retraining my brain basically on how to eat, 3 balanced meals a day. Do I do that every meal? No. But I mean, again, it's that awareness that the best thing for my body to keep me from wanting all the food at night because it was hungry, right? I mean, it's not that I was just eating, but if I eat breakfast and it's pretty much balanced, if I eat lunch, it's pretty much balanced. I eat my dinner, then you're pretty sustained and not feeling that need to just, shove the food in late at night.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. So, during our time together, what did you love most about working together?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I know I wrote notes because I didn't want to forget anything, but I think the biggest thing was the accountability. You go to Weight Watchers and they weigh you, and that's your accountability, but it's somewhat humiliating and, the whole thing. So, accountability, I think it's always good in a way, but this accountability was like every Friday. I knew that, we were going to check in and I was excited to hear like what am I going to learn next? What tools, and you would just meet me where I was, whether or not it coincided with that lesson plan or that, that topic of the day or that week. Like I would come in and be like, oh, my dad is sick, or whatever, when we were talking about that, and this is happening in my back, and, I have to go back to work 5 days a week. And you just kind of met me where I was and walked me through those thoughts and feelings. And then you'd always bring it back around like a little present. You would wrap it up with the topic that we wanted to, take away from for the week. But it was always something that, I appreciated. It wasn't just like, okay, well, this is what we're learning today. And so, I hope that you have, it was, okay, this is what's going on in your life right now. And this is how we can apply it to this, particular topic. And then the best thing, and I'm still not great at it, but I still try to remember, is to celebrate when something happens, like those wins, and to say, hey, you could have done this, but you did this. Yay, Lauren. And remembering to always celebrate even the tiniest of things, because you're making changes and for the better. So with me, those were the two things: is how you met me where I was, and then you had me celebrate. Even if I thought it was kind of corny and weird, it was something that I still take away and appreciate, even to this day.
It can be hard to celebrate ourselves at time because we're not used
Yeah.
to it. Like, especially as women too, we're told to like keep ourselves small and like don't be too loud, don't boast too much, just keep it all to
Mhm.
ourselves. And so sometimes it can feel really awkward at first to be like, woohoo, go me, I did awesome this week. Like, let me share it with
Right.
you.
And it can be
But I
something,
think it gets
and the
easier
thing
over
that's
time.
crazy is like you're celebrating something that most people are like, I'm like, I tell my husband, yay, I only ate a half a cookie, and I'm full and satisfied. And he's like, I always eat a half a cookie because that's like what natural eaters, they don't have that mindset. So for me, at first, I'm like, I'm celebrating what I'm supposed to be doing. But that's a celebration. Like you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So I still like the celebrations.
Yeah. And you'll know this from working together, but for everyone else, celebration is our neural superglue. It is what sticks in our habits. It makes anything we are doing stick 100 times more just by getting proud of ourselves. Because what that does is it releases dopamine for us to say, hey, look, I did it. I did something amazing. And that reinforces our habit loop of the new habits. If we don't celebrate ourselves, which is a big mistake I see, especially when people get through an urge, if they just say, oh my gosh, thank goodness I got through that urge. It's like, well, that's your brain's gonna be like, I don't want to do that again. That was miserable. That was no fun. But if instead we're like, woohoo, go me, we do a little party, a little dance with
Mhm.
ourselves, then our brain's like, hey, that was fun. Let's sit with that urge again. Let's do that again. And so it makes these habits reinforced in a brand new way. I think with the accountability to piece that is so huge and why it's so nice to have someone working with you one on one, or even in my group programs, they're small. So we're not going to be in this course of hundreds of members. And it's not this like, I do give you the steps, but it's not a strict step-by-step plan of you have to do this each week. It's very flexible to accommodate you and your life, because I know that, sometimes the lessons just aren't that relevant for where you are today. And sometimes we need a little bit of a different topic in order to make sure that we get you support with where you are at. And so I'm really glad that you appreciated that as well about the
For
program.
sure.
And so, what would you tell someone if they are listening to you today and they're like, oh my gosh, this is me. I have also tried so many things. I am also thinking about doing a GLP-1. I don't really know where to start. And they're on the fence about joining the program. What would you tell to that person?
Yeah, it took me a minute to decide. It's an investment, and I've spent so much money. I think that's the first thing you think is, oh, I've spent so much money and I don't want to fail again. That was my biggest fear, is like to keep throwing money at something. Okay, I'll do this, but am I going to fail? And then it's just going to be another, lost money and failed program. The thing is, it's not a diet and it's not a program, right? It's about working through your mind and getting it straight, right? Getting all the fuzziness clear. It's about like facing your issues and fears. Because I wrote down like, you're kind of hitting all those things, that your fears about food, your issues with food, kind of hitting them head on, and then dealing with them. Because a lot of times before, you'd be stressed or depressed or whatever, and you just shove it down with some Oreos and then we just move on. And here you kind of bring the things to the top and like learn how to deal with them, and then replace them with tools that will help your current thoughts and situations. So for me, it was well worth it. It's something that when I was through, I didn't feel like, well, that was a failure, like there goes my money. And you give the money back guarantee. I mean, you can't lose, but it is a big investment. It's an investment in yourself and you have to take it seriously. I think if you just go through and listen to you talk each week, you know, you might not succeed, but you have to put the work in. I mean, it's super important that you're open to changing your mind. So I would say anybody that's
Mhm.
on the fence, I had to beg my husband because he was like, oh, another program. Are you sure? When I was like, oh, I'm going to do it. I promise I'm going to do it. And I think I told you one of my biggest things, I'm a fear of failure. I don't want to spend all this money and then fail. But for me, it was so worth it. Anytime I hear somebody struggling, I'm like, oh, hey, I just got done with this coach. She's amazing. And it helped me so much. And I've never told anybody that they should go on a certain diet because it's never worked. So I say,
Mhm.
you won't be sorry.
Thank you for sharing all of that. And I think so many people do have that exact thought that you had of like, I've spent so much money on other things before, and especially with all the things you've done. I mean, I can imagine it's tens of thousands of dollars of other things. So, how did you get over that thought where you decided to take the leap of, you know what, I want to try something new?
It seemed so different because when I was doing my research and, kind of into what the program was, and then our first consultation and listening, that it wasn't that you were going to tell me what to eat and when to eat it and how to eat it. It was going to be different. It was going to be, what I understood and what it ended up being was that it was going to kind of change my mindset. And so for me,
Mhm.
there's no diet that says, I'm going to change your mind. It's more like, well, we're just going to tell
Mhm.
you what to eat. You program you to stay on this program and you have to be on it for the rest of your life because, if you just like that program that I was in with, 4 hours a night, 4 days a week, like as long as I was in that community, great. But then what? And this, I was reading
Mhm.
about the tools and the way that it's a long term, to me, it looked like a long term solution. And that's what
Mhm.
I needed. And that's what I got.
And what I like to remind people too is, you could do a quick fix and have a 30-day program and feel good for those 30 days. But like you mentioned, it's like, well, what happens after that? What skills and tools are you taking with you after that? And if you're not learning, if all that you're learning is how to follow a meal plan, you don't have any skills after that. You've just learned
Right.
discipline.
I got to read.
And that's not something that lasts you.
Yeah.
Yeah, how to read through a calorie
Yeah.
counter. And so I really want you to have the skills that are gonna last you for life, which is tuning into your hunger and fullness and knowing how to sit with your emotions, knowing how to handle these urges, because that's what's going to, one, like actually rewire your brain so you actually have a different brain, but also give you like tools that you can rely on even when the program is done
Right.
too. So I'm so happy you came on today, Lauren, to talk to everyone. Is there anything else you have to say today?
I thank you so much. It was a great 6 months. It was a great investment in myself. And I just appreciate your time and your attention to me. And I loved being here today. So thanks for inviting me.
Thanks so much, Lauren.